Welcome to the WagerTalk Podcast for the week ending October 29th. We've got a big show tonight as William Bernanke stops by from CG Analytics. He's going to join us to talk about where the money is going in college and NFL football action this week. We're going to have another edition of Handicapper's Corner. Ralph Michaels and Dave Cokin are in studio with me tonight as we're going to preview some of the biggest games this weekend in college and pro football. And then, of course, at the end of the show, it's best bet time. We'll have those. Mark Seidel is behind the controls. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo. So let's get this party started. And we're going to bring in tonight's first guest, and it's William Bernanke from CG Analytics. You can follow him at the Moneyline Guy. And all season long, we've been bringing William on, and we're going to continue to do that. Love getting this information. William, how's it going this week?
Oh, it's going real well, Marco. How you guys doing over there?
I know we're doing better than I think when we do the recap from last week. I know it's sometimes painful to do it, but our listeners like to hear how the books made out. And I'm not sure how Saturday went, but I know how Sunday went. So tell the listeners the results of last week, how it was for the books.
Yeah, of course, Marco. And contrary to popular belief, the books do have some tough weeks, just like bettors do, and it's part of the business. And you have to just like a bettor would do, you put it past you and move on. And last week wasn't very good in college football. Not as bad as the NFL, but certainly not a great week, not at all. And some of the key games that really stung us were Washington State covering against Oregon. The Michigan State, believe it or not, the total, staying under in that game was a big loss. I know that probably was overlooked by a lot of people, but that game was really some heavy action on the under, and it stayed under, with plenty to spare. Oklahoma covering over TCU. Well, it was a very lopsided game, and they covered handily. And then Stanford covering Thursday night wasn't very good as well against Arizona State. And then the only really good game we can point to is Texas Tech covering an 18-point spread against Kansas, which opened up at 20.5. So that was a rare game where you see a lot of dog action and, driving that price down there.
Yeah, how bizarre is that? An 18-point favorite. The house needs that to make a comeback on a bad day. I mean, that's not a very normal occurrence, is it?
No, not at all, especially at that level. You'll see underdogs in the single-digit range get hit pretty hard, but nothing at that level. So, Texas Tech's been an overlooked team all year, and it just kept going this past weekend. We'll see how it goes on Saturday against Iowa State.
How about the bloodbath on Sunday?
That was pretty bad, but it's going to happen sooner or later. I guess better now than later in the season, so we can make adjustments accordingly. And you probably could guess the games. The Patriots was a tough one. Despite the line move, it was still 80% Patriot money. Gronkowski out, it still didn't matter there. The Lions against the Dolphins, that I think everyone knew that one. The Colts, which was surprising, against the Bills, thought it'd have a little bit more even action there, balanced action, but it wasn't the case. And the Colts again covering easy. The Sunday night game was a joke from the beginning. Chiefs just no drama at all. Maybe for the total, that was about it. And the Vikings covering against the Jets was not a good result as well. And it started off great too. Titans covering and doing us a favor, going for a 2-point conversion there. So one way or the other, not that 6 wouldn't have been a bad result, but it certainly would make it no doubt with any maybe teasers or money line parlays.
And it had to help you also on the total in that game. I'm sure you had some over money. If anybody got up, if anybody got up out here in Vegas that early in the morning to watch that game, they're not betting the under. They would have stayed. If they're betting the under, they're staying in bed.
Absolutely right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was looking back at it here. Yeah, there was a slight liability to the over. Certainly more on the side, but it wasn't a bad result, of course, on the total as well.
Just a general question now that we're in the regular NFL mode. Is the Sunday night always the biggest volume game on Sundays?
Not always, but recently it has been for obvious reasons. Chiefs playing 2 weeks in a row, Mahomes, the popularity, Patriots, playing the Chiefs the week before. So it all depends on the matchup, but the matchups have lined up, the stars have aligned right the last couple weeks.
Well, I want to ask you a question here. It popped into my head when you were talking about some of the key games in the NFL. And the one that you mentioned, of course, the New England game with Chicago. I don't know a single sharp in town that wasn't on Chicago. Yet you guys had a huge liability on New England. And that, everybody thinks that, the sharps outweigh, the general John Q. public making bets. But when it comes to the NFL, that is not the case, because you got so many of your recreational players in all of those $50, $100, $200 bets. They add up to get you to the point where you're balancing books and needing that side opposed to all of the sharps that are coming in and making maybe four-figure bets on a game with Chicago. The classic pros versus Joes, but in the NFL, the Joes can move a line just as fast.
Oh, of course. There's no question you'll see that. You saw it in the Sunday night game. The line moved a full point. Some places maybe a point and a half with the Chiefs there. And, the Patriots game had an interesting wrinkle because, Gronkowski being out was announced out, I think it was Sunday morning. And you saw the line drop quickly. And then once that happens, the sharps are going to be off the game because they're not getting their number at that point. So they're just going to, move on at that point, or maybe look, who knows, maybe look in game or something like that. But certainly not before the game once the value's gone, even with the injury.
I just love talking to you, William, and talking about, how it works and the sharp money and the public money. One bizarre question that's been in my mind for a few weeks, and I've just never gotten the opportunity to ask. CG has multiple properties here, and they're all awesome places to watch the game. And we know sharps are going to bet online with the apps. Is there one of our local houses that does better than the others, where the public perhaps is sharp, let's just in quotation marks, sharper than the other houses?
I don't know about sharper. I think it's just the different properties are going to have a different, maybe fans of teams. The Strip, you're going to see naturally bettors that maybe are fans of teams from out of town more so than maybe local, or even, let's say California teams. They'll be from all over. And the local books, you'll be seeing bettors there that are going to support, I guess, somewhat of local teams. Raiders considered a local team now. Certainly the Rams and the Chargers, teams like that. Even the Cardinals, if there's any fans left. Those teams. So you'll see the tourist bets as opposed to the locals bets and the teams that they maybe root for. They're betting with their heart if they do.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but the locations like the Cosmo and Venetian, the sharps, just for convenience sake, they're either betting on their app, but if they're actually going to bet in person, it's easier for the guys in town to hit one of the properties like the Palms or Silverton or the M, depending where they live, where you can get in and out real quick, where on the Strip it's a little bit more, it takes more of an effort to, to park your car, make the walk to the sports book and so forth, where the other properties you can get in and out and get in a door right by the sports book. But the places on the Strip, you're going to get those weekend warriors that are coming to Vegas. They're playing their games, and that's where you're going to see a lot more game day square action for sure.
Oh, absolutely, Marco. There's no question. You'll see the much more square action on the Strip, the local places, the convenience of parking in and out. Certainly, if you even want to sign up for the app, if you're going to sign up for the app, absolutely go to a local property close to you so you can not only, sign up for your app, make your deposit, with the Silverton, the M, get in and get out, and then you're already, in your car on your way home. And I wouldn't recommend betting while you're driving, obviously, but, you can certainly get home as quick as possible and, make your wagers for the day and for the week.
And for those of us that absolutely hate paying for parking, the local spots are obviously free.
Try not to think about that, but yes, that's an absolutely great point.
Yeah, well, actually, Venetian has free parking.
Venetian
in Palazzo, yeah. I don't want to give away my secret. I play poker at the Venetian all the time. I have a spot that I can always
free parking?
It's free parking. I have free parking at Caesar's properties too.
Yeah, but you like all the food options there too.
There's a lot of nice food options at the Venetian, that's for sure.
Tremendous.
Hey, let's head to the NFL, Will, and or not the NFL, excuse me. You've got to start with college first. What are the games getting the big action this week from the sharps that you're seeing already?
I got 1, 2, 3, 4 games here that I've noticed some respected money come in. Missouri Oklahoma State, North Carolina, and Clemson are the four for sure that we've seen some respect the money come in, and they've bet them and moved the lines pretty significantly.
And for our listeners, we talked to Jason Simbal on Las Vegas Sports Network. For those people listening, and they had sharp money on Clemson, Florida State since 1980. This is the only other time they've been a dog of 16 or more in almost 40 years of action, and that was against number one Florida in 1986. So, you think Sharps are going to play underdogs. This is a case where the Sharps are playing a historically large line on a team that just has dominated both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, interesting point there, Ralph. Go ahead and kick us to the NFL, Ralph.
Now moving to the NFL, jumping back to college for just 1 second, the North Carolina game just shocks me that's one of the four jumping on there. I mean, I know North Carolina got their players back and they are, and they're coming back to full health. Did you have North Carolina money last week as well?
Against Syracuse, it was balanced action, but we did see a couple of respected bets on North Carolina in that game, and it looked bleak early, as you remember the game, obviously, but they almost pulled it out in the end as far as winning outright. But yeah, that was we saw some money there. It went 10, 10.5, then back to 10, I believe. So we saw some money appear there, and it's just kind of carried over this week. Just the way they've moved the ball the last few weeks, I think bettors feel they're undervalued with at least getting points at this juncture of the season.
Well, this is definitely one of those cases and points that if you're not somebody that adjusts your power ratings on a weekly basis, this is not the same team that we saw in week one. And each week that goes by, they're going to get better. Just because those guys came back, all in unison, they still hadn't played together. It takes a few games to get, up to game speed. They're going to be a team that there's going to be spots that is going to be good plays for them, that they're going to be undervalued, based on their season-long numbers.
Well, let's move to the NFL. And, William, tell us about, are the usual suspects those teams getting the money again in the NFL?
Well, there's only the two games here I've seen some respect and money pop up here, and a couple of the games you kind of think it would at some point, but it hasn't happened yet. But Philly against Jacksonville saw respect. We took respect to bet earlier in the week, and this is a game I'm sure other spots have probably reported the same with Baltimore, which is surprising, because Carolina's off a credible win against Philly. Obviously they were outplayed most of the game, but they did win the game, obviously. But Baltimore going from 1 to 2, and we saw a respected bet early in the week on Baltimore, I think at -1.
Will, I wanted to ask you about one particular game in the NFL that, there's one book here in town that brings out what they call the look-ahead line, and I like to use it. You guys do at the beginning of the season. You put out projected numbers for the whole season, and you can bet on them, and kudos for you guys for doing that, so early. We're still in summer, and you guys are giving us NFL lines for the whole season. But I like to look at that look-ahead line simply because that is going to be the most up-to-date number that you're going to have prior to last week's games being played. And then I like to look at what the reaction is from one game being played and how much of a line movement has the market, adjusted off of that. And obviously if there's injuries, that's a different story. But the Minnesota-New Orleans game just absolutely blows my mind that last week the look-ahead line was Minnesota -3. And we're looking at this line right now floating around. It was down as low as a pick. I think it's back to Minnesota 1 or 1.5. But what moved so much that changed that market from 1 week? Yeah, the Saints went into Baltimore and won. They won 24-23. We all know how that game ended. If he kicks the extra point, we don't know what happens in overtime. But either way, it was a coin flip game. Minnesota did what they were supposed to do. How do they get penalized for, beating the snot out of the Jets? I'm baffled by it. Did you guys get some big bets coming in on the Saints? Where's that line movement coming from?
Well, right now it's actually Minnesota is picking with us, and 52.5 is the total. But I think it's just a combination of two things here. You have Minnesota, who was not everybody's, but a majority of experts preseason, Super Bowl, pick. They were kind of like the trendy Super Bowl team with Kirk Cousins and the great defense and all that. And they got off such a rough start that some people just kind of turned their back on, especially after the Buffalo game. But they've righted themselves and won a couple games here. And the Saints, a lot of people have told me they feel the Saints were very lucky last week. Now, you go to Baltimore and then have a 7-point lead with, what was it? When Baltimore got the ball a minute to go, I don't think that's really lucky. I think you pretty much earn your spot there, having the lead, basically protect the 7-point lead late in the game. So the Saints have played real well. But I think it's more about Minnesota. People are feeling strong again about them. They did, of course, they beat them in a miracle play last year in the playoffs, so you can't say they outplayed them there. But I think it's just a combination of that. Minnesota's way they played lately and people believing them again to be the superior team in the NFC. That's whether it's reality or not remains to be seen.
I've asked every bookmaker that I've talked to, I've asked them the same question. The highest NFL total ever in the NFL has been 61. We've got 2 games that are coming up on the schedule that I think are going to have a shot to beat that total for record. Do you think we will break that with either the Rams-Saints game or the Rams-KC game?
Rams-Saints and Rams-KC. Let's see.
KC,
Rams-Saints, it's going to be in good weather. We know that, so that should eclipse that total. And the KC-Rams game, if I'm not mistaken, that's in L.A.?
The KC, no, that one's in when KC and the Rams hook up. That's the Mexico game.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, those games have been somewhat high scoring there anyway. The high altitude, it certainly can play some tricks on some of the players, especially defensively. I think both games eclipsed that 61. It wouldn't shock me. In fact, I'd be willing to say I'm pretty confident that'll happen.
All right, good stuff. World Series is going on. How has the action been, and does the books have any liability? First 2 games, all the Red Sox, and this is looking like if Dodgers don't get Game 3, this is going to be a sweep.
Yeah, definitely. The first 2 games have had great action, but it hasn't been as bad as maybe some people might think. Game 1 was definitely difficult. That was all Red Sox money. You saw the line move a couple hours right up to the first pitch. It was like a 30-cent move in that range. So it was all Red Sox money, and that's rare against Kershaw. I think you'll never see that again. But, we know how he pitches in the postseason, which is shaky. And then Game 2, we saw some Dodger money show up, a decent amount from some respected players, figuring they'd bounce back. They liked the matchup, and it looked good for a while, obviously, until Ryu was taken out of the game. Then it just went all downhill. But certainly great handle on both games. And liability is kind of it's two different things here. To win the World Series, the future bets, we're rooting for the Red Sox. That's a separate, from the series price, obviously. It contradicts it. But we definitely are rooting for the Red Sox to win it all because our futures outweigh the series price, which right now the liability is with the Red Sox, but certainly not even close to the figures you're talking about with futures.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was on the Red Sox on Monday Tuesday in Game 1, and I got it early in the day at 1:45, and then I was away from my computer for a while, and I looked back on right before game time, and I saw what the line had went to, and I go, am I reading this right? They gave Kershaw. I actually thought that there would be the public be taking a shot with Kershaw, saying, I never get a shot with Kershaw, at this number. I mean, if you play him out, 100 times, I get Kershaw, he's going to, he's got to win 40% of those. And at that number, you would have made money. But in a one-game sample size, no, you're not, because they slaughtered the Red Sox slaughtered them on Monday. So I was shocked that line went that high. William, as always, we love having you on. This kind of stuff, what you do with us in sharing this information, this kind of information was never available, 5, 10, 15 years ago, as far as, the books, you all guys have always been viewed as the enemy, so to speak. And, I don't know how you guys got that reputation, because all of the guys I know around town, you guys are actually pretty nice. We like you. And, but, we still want to beat you. That's the bottom line. And you want to beat us. One of the things that you do, though, with our Kelly Stewart on Sunday mornings, this show's getting so much buzz because it's like the last lead up. You could turn on Game Day and, NFL Today, whatever, the networks, but they're not going to tell you 90 minutes, 60 minutes to 90 minutes before kickoff who has the money, where it's at. Is it Shop? Is it Square? You tell us that. Tell us a little bit about that show and how much fun that is doing.
Oh, yeah, it's great. I look forward to it every week, and there's nothing like it. It's being able to give out the information of really where the cold, hard money is going right up to kickoff or as close to kickoff as you really can get. It's just a wonderful thing, and I think it just gives a different perspective because, you can only learn so much or even see so much during the week. You can project, you can prognosticate, all those words, but, you just can't figure out what people are going to bet and what's going into their heads. And this reveals, it's kind of pulling back the curtain, and I enjoy it, and Kelly's doing great with it as well. It's something I look forward to, and we'll be at it again on this Sunday.
All right, I tell our listeners, you've got to check it out. Just go to WagerTalk.com. We post the video Sunday mornings, like I said, inside of the 90 minutes before kickoff. And follow Will at the Moneyline Guy. He'll send out a tweet. Kelly always sends out, Kelly in Vegas, so follow her, and you'll be able to watch that. And, if you're in town, guys, check out one of the CG properties. They're all fabulous, but get an app, even if you don't live in Vegas. Here's the thing, guys. Most people have the misconception that you have to live here to have an app. Well, you have to be in Nevada to have the app. You don't have to live here. So if you're here just for the weekend, a few days, stop by one of the CG properties. Takes what, Will? 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. You open up an account. You're set. Deposit money. Make all of your wagers all weekend long, and then when you're ready to leave, just go to the window. It's like cashing one ticket. Make a withdrawal, get your money, take it out, and you're set to go. It'll make your weekend that much more enjoyable. You don't have to stand in those lines. And I tell you, if you're trying to get a bet down at 9:45 on a Sunday morning on the Strip at one of the sports books, good luck to you. Yeah. It's a hectic scene. You know where I'm at 9:45 if I usually I got all of my bets in by there. But if I'm getting a last-minute one where numbers got to where I want, I'm at home, on the couch, in my underwear, getting ready to watch the game.
TMI, Marco,
I'm putting it on. That's the best way to bet, guys. Come on.
I'm home your at home was a good enough explanation. We didn't need to hear about your underwear.
Isn't it? That, yeah.
Well, this section's about pulling the curtain back. I pulled the curtain back. Come on.
Right. Not all the way, just a part of the way.
All right, guys. Hey, Will, thanks for stopping by. We'll look forward to talking to you again, buddy, and I appreciate you always jumping on the show with us.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. I look forward to it next week. Have a great weekend.
Good stuff. We're going to take a quick break, guys. When we come back, we are going to do Handicapper's Corner. Got a little bit of information we want to tell you about and a big announcement as well. And that's up next here on the WagerTalk Podcast.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. It's time for Handicapper's Corner, and we got some great stuff coming up here with Ralph. But before I do, I want to tell you guys about a special offer. We'll mention it again later in the show, but guys, we've got a deal for you right now at WagerTalk. We want to reward our loyal listeners, guys that watch our videos. And if you're not watching our videos, guys, you're missing out. We put up, what did we do this week, Ralph? Was it 11, 12 videos we did in studio? We break down games in detail. You get a couple handicappers on each panel breaking it down. And then, of course, you get to look at Kelly in the videos as well.
Marco, and the nice thing about the videos is this. Every person is not going to have a play in every video. You're just getting their thoughts on the game. You're getting if they like something because of a situation. But as importantly, when we're talking about games, there's times that we take you off a game or give you reasons not to play the game. So this isn't just, hey, this is a play, you should play Kansas City. We're giving you reasons on how to look at a game, ways to handicap a game. And again, it's an entire learning process to make our viewers better bettors in the long run.
If you save somebody a loser, Ralph, that you're saving them
10% more than giving them a winner. Absolutely.
1.1, you're saving them. All right, guys. Ralph, you know what? You're absolutely amazing, and I don't want your head to get any bigger than it is already, because I don't know that we can get it any bigger, and we'll talk about that later in the show too.
That's size. That's not ego he's talking about. So
yeah,
because I really don't have the ego at all. So.
You should. You know, there's a fine line between confidence and cocky, but every once in a while you got to go dancing back and forth between them. And right now, you've got every right in the world to be cocky. Just don't get fat and sassy.
Yeah, you know, the college football run has been great and got a big 5% play in SEC Game of the Month. But, you know, college basketball around the corner, and we'll be talking a lot more handicapping angles with college basketball. It starts on your birthday for all those that want to send Marco a gift. November the 6th, 143 games. But, you know, Marco, we always talk about good situations in handicapping and positives, and you know, you mentioned bubble burst often.
Dream crusher.
But there's an opposite side to that.
Yeah, you've got, you know, we always talk about whenever a team has that first loss that wrecks their season. Now, it's not necessarily their first loss, because some teams, and we'll talk about that today as well on one of the games we're previewing, a team suffered their first loss, but everything is still in play for them as far as their season goals.
A goal buster, absolutely. A goal buster for Alabama is a loss.
Yeah.
You know, or Penn State was a loss, and that hang on the Michigan State hangover.
Yeah. Alabama actually could have one loss and still get to the championship.
Bad example on my part, absolutely.
Yeah, but for most teams, it is the one, and it breaks it. Like a Pac-12 team. Once you lose your first game, that's going to end your shot for getting into the national championship pitcher. You could look for a letdown. We saw that. Penn State was the perfect example. Penn State was not one of those teams that was going to get in with a loss when they lost their game to Ohio State. But there's the flip side to that, Ralph, and it's when teams reach that there's nothing else to play for. And by nothing else to play for, that means they're not going to be bowl eligible. And not to be bowl eligible means when you get your seventh loss, you can't get to that magical, 6-6, which is so sad that teams, get rewarded for a 6-6. But we just have too many bowl games, Ralph. But money, money, money. That's what it's all about.
Hey, I love more bowl games, more value to pick from. So to me, granted, I'm not going to watch every bowl game. I watch most of them. But hey, if I have more bowls to choose from to give my customers value, hey, more bowls for me.
And that's going to be something we'll be talking about down the road when we get to bowl season. There's different ways to handicap different bowls. Because,
no question.
Yeah, the motivational factor.
Day and you have your New Year's Day bowl, and 100% agree.
But, Ralph, when we have a team that once they reach that seventh loss, and then they're installed as an underdog, which is most likely teams that have 7 losses are going to be underdogs because they're not a very good team. The situation is you can just blindly play against these teams. And you've come up with the numbers here. 99 wins, 147 losses, and 3 pushes. That's just 40.2% against the spread.
That's since 2010. So we're talking 7 full seasons. So we've got a nice body of work. We're talking about almost 250 plays, so we've got a nice body amount of games. Since 2010, that's it. It's simple. If you're an underdog and in the last game you got your 7th loss, you are simply a 40.2 or a 59.8 play on team. Yeah. Those play against teams in that role this week are Central Michigan, Rice, and UTEP. Taking it one step further, if you are a double-digit dog in that role off your 7th loss, of course the subset is going to come from those 3 teams we gave out. The record, 50-101-2, and the 2 teams, Marco, in that role?
Rice and UTEP. And Ralph's getting all excited about this stat because this is the time of the year when this thing comes into play, and I can't disagree with him. And then you did a flip side to this. You wanted to we looked at the dogs. What do favorites do in this role? Well, home favorites after their 7th loss, 22-15-1, 46.8. It's a losing,
That was 12, 15, and 1. A typo on my.
Oh my! Okay,
so
yeah, I'm looking at the percentage. Yeah.
Right. It's if you're a home favorite after your 7th loss. This goes back to 2010. So, like you said, most teams we have 240 teams or 250 teams are a dog. Only about 40 teams have been the favorite. So, if you're a home favorite after that 7th loss, you're 12, 15, and 1, 47%. So nothing actionable, but at least you are informed and you know that information.
But there is one actionable category with the favorites, and you've showed here away favorites after their 7th loss, 6-14 against the spread.
That's 30%, and it's exactly what you said, Marco. Your hopes are dashed. You're not getting to a bowl. You got that 7th loss. You know you have nothing to play for, and now you're going on the road and you're laying points. The best situation to play against in that role. No teams fit that mold, but I tell you what, next week I'll do the update again. We'll see what happens with the 3 teams today, and then we'll give you an update on those.
Ralph, when you do that, can you run a subset for it? And I'll tell you why, because I've always said that when you get to Thanksgiving weekend and you have all of those rivalries, I throw the stats out. Can you pull just that Thanksgiving week, try that would be the last week of college football, and see if anything changes? Because I have seen over the years, when you get to that weekend, because they have nothing to play for, Ralph, and it's a handicapping angle, that last game against your rival becomes your bowl game. Those dogs rise up to the occasion because they're not going anywhere. And especially when you got one of those ones that's going to be sitting on the sideline and their rival needs the win for either the conference title, the conference championship, or to get their 6th win. That's an angle I like to look at, because the dog becomes dangerous and you're getting an inflated number with the dog because the public is going to be on the team in the so-called must-win situation.
Situations like this, for those that follow me on Twitter, it's at CalSportsLV. You know what? I don't give you my personal opinion on Twitter. That's for 99% of the rest of the world. I give you these type of stats, infos. I show you the picture of the games and the logs are there. So follow me at Twitter at CalSportsLV. Marco, and these type of angles are the things I look for the Joe's angle of the day. Joe's angle of the day is the Joe's Seafoods here at Caesar's Palace, and it's a sponsor on the Las Vegas Sports Network show. You partake, I partake, as well as Teddy Covers, hosted by Dave Cokin, sponsored by WagerTalk. And you can get those archive shows by just going to ESPN Las Vegas and going to the Las Vegas Sports Line. Well, the angle of the day the last 2 weeks on a perfect 10-0 run, and I would like to share with you the Thursday angle of the day. This is something that you can use for this weekend, and it's something you can write down and save for the future. Well, it's simple. NFL teams off an overtime win, and they're a dog next game. It's that simple of an angle. And the nice thing is it's not a team angle. It's a league-wide system angle. Well, Tampa Bay is off an overtime win last week. They're a dog at Cincinnati. The team in that role, 2-16 against the spread. It's clearly a play against Tampa Bay and a play on Cincinnati. And I do want to say one thing. No matter what the record is on an angle or a system, you shouldn't just base a play on that. But if it's a game that you sort of liked, let that angle push you over the edge. If it's a game you sort of liked and the angle's against you, let that angle get you off the play. But don't make a play no matter how good a record is, just based on a system or angle.
Good stuff. And, Ralph, I want you tell our listeners about the new publication that you just brought out. You just continue to amaze me with the amount of work that you put in providing free content, handicapping content for our listeners to download. All they have to do is go to WagerTalk, go to your homepage, and there's links there, and you put it in your shopping cart, like you're buying it, but it's $0. So don't get alarmed. You're getting no credit card. You're getting it for free. Just go to Ralph's homepage, and you've done it again with the basketball guide.
And again, there's the Gridiron Guide, a weekly college football newsletter. There's my Stat Compare, a weekly stat comparison sheet in college football where I give you my exclusive offense, defense, and special teams ratings. There's the Game of the Year line, so you know what every game of the year was that was opened by the Superbook early in the summer. We also have the first pitch for baseball. That's obviously expiring now. The NBA stat sheet, which was very popular last year, will start next week. And college basketball is my baby. This is what I started handicapping on back in the 1990s. And, my history is this. I worked for almost 20 years at Phil Steele Publications at North Coast Sports. And since we did football, all of my handicapping skills went towards North Coast Sports to help them. But I started Cal Sports and have had Cal Sports since the 1990s handicapping college basketball. And I got many questions. How do you do your power ratings, or how do you do your ratings at the beginning of the season? And basically, this guide is the format I use each year. You have to be knowledgeable about what happened last year. How many starters did the team have back, 0 or 5? Well, that depends on if their record was good or bad, depending on what they had back. What type of rebounding team are there? I not only give you the rebounding diff for the season, I give you offensive and defensive or home and opposing teams. I give you their highest AP ranks of the year. And then looking at this year, we have returning starters for every team. We have all 55 new head coaches and a breakdown of where those new head coaches came from. There are many new head coaches that have never been Division I head coaches. And one story, the Maine head coach this year spent the last 6 seasons as the Maine's women head coach. Prior to that, he spent 16 years as a woman's assistant in Division I college basketball. So he's never been a Division men's head coach. He's never been an assistant head coach in women's basketball. And then there's 3 sources that give you ranks either in the conference or from 1 to 353. There's 353 teams, 32 conferences. That entire guide is how I start doing my power ratings and how I look at those teams when I'm projecting conferences and looking for conference future bets. It's all in one place. You find the same information for every conference on every page. It's very regimented. And again, it's just a great guide to get there. And like you said, college basketball starts again November the 6th. Marco, tell us again that code one more time for that incredible 30-day all-access package.
Yeah, this is the best time to have a 30-day package because of all of the sports that are running simultaneously. When you do it, normally a 30-day package at WagerTalk is $325. If you use coupon code TV225, you will get $100 off. Just enter that coupon code at checkout, and you'll be able to get a 30-day package for just $225. Now, you can use that coupon as many times as you want. Pick as many cappers as you want and use it on them. Get all those guys for $225. The only stipulation is you've got to do this by midnight Saturday. That coupon is going to expire midnight Saturday. Jump on board. You don't want to wait till midnight Saturday. You want to get... There's Thursday night, there was 5 college football games. There's, I think, 4 or 5 again on Friday night. And then, of course, you've got everything going on Saturday, Sunday NFL action. Jump on board, get that 30-day package. All right, guys, we're going to step out for a quick break. When we return, we're going to break down some of the biggest games in college football. We'll be back here in a moment on the WagerTalk Podcast.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. It's segment 3. It's college preview time. And before we get to it, want to tell you about a special offer from uwager.eu. Get a 70% welcome bonus of up to $1,000 using promo code WT70. That's WT70 when you sign up. This is exclusive to our WagerTalk listeners. Put up to an extra $1,000 in your account at uwager.eu. All right, guys, let's go to college football. We got some good games this weekend. This is the time of the year, guys, when things start shaking out in the conferences. We separate the pretenders from the contenders and start to look at how that Final Four is going to match up. Here's a game that doesn't have any of those implications, and that is Wisconsin and Northwestern. Well, Wisconsin still has a shot here for the Big Ten, their side of the bracket. They're laying 6.5 on the road at Northwestern. I'll start with you, Dave. How do you see this one?
Well, and I'll throw in a little self-promotion here. Colleges, talk about consistency. For the season last year, all my plays at WagerTalk, every one of them, 63%. This year, 63% in the colleges. So it's good. And last weekend just absolutely crushed it. So hopefully more of the same. That man sitting next to me, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow. I mean, you talk about hot. As far as Wisconsin and Northwestern goes, I mean, it's a Northwestern game, so you just take the points. I mean, it's just amazing. Week after week after week. If Northwestern's the favorite, you go against them. If Northwestern's the dog, you take them. And I can't argue against taking them here aside from that. Why not? Wisconsin is just not all that good this year. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be favored in the game, but this line is more on reputation than reality, and the fact that Northwestern stunk it up last week against Rutgers in a game they clearly were not motivated for and almost get upset. But they'll be up for this game, and I think it's going to be a close battle, so that makes the points a viable commodity to me.
Yeah, well, for those that talking about your Northwestern as a favorite and a dog, 6-1 in that role this year, taking the dog in Northwestern games. But I will point out that Wisconsin has been an excellent road team. They're 9-1 ATS the last 3 years as an away favorite, 12-2 ATS the last 4 years. So you have 4 years of product on there. And why does it work? Well, they do consistent football play calling. They run the ball. They keep games close. They don't turn the ball over. So when they go on the road, they don't have as many mistakes as a lot of people. But this Wisconsin team is not the same team as we expected. No. I mean, they were supposed to be in the hunt to win the entire thing. They had the best offensive line in football, all of college football, 4 Big Ten, 4 first-team or second-team Big Ten players returned. I'm looking at the summer line for the early lines. Wisconsin was 12.5. So they've fallen off back. The one thing about Northwestern, again, and why they're a good dog, is they're probably 80-20 pass run, so you don't think they can control the tempo. But it's dink and dunk with them, short passes. They do control the clock. They usually have a time of possession edge, and then that makes them a good dog. I don't have a play on it, but again, I would lean with you in this situation with Northwestern as a home dog.
All right, I'm going to disagree with both of you guys in this one. And the stuff you're saying about Northwestern, 100% true. The only difference is in this matchup, and I forget about the Rutgers game last week. Clearly, they were coming off the overtime game against Nebraska and had this on deck. But I did watch them every play of the Nebraska game. This defense can't stop anybody. And I hear what you're saying about normally they can do the dink and dunk and win time of possession. They're not going to win time of possession here because they're not going to be able to get Wisconsin off the field. Wisconsin's just going to run the football down their throat. And although I'm not a fan of the Wisconsin quarterback, he does enough to keep the defenses honest. They can't just stack the line and stop the run. I think Wisconsin's going to just keep running the football. This is one of those games where Wisconsin could run it 50 times in this game, and I just don't see Northwestern getting off, and we are getting line value.
One point, Marco, I do want to bring up just to contest your point a bit, is it's much different having a mobile quarterback like Nebraska had with Martinez than Honebrook, who isn't, and the running back is going to get the ball running. So, again, a different setup and different schemes without a mobile quarterback this week.
All right, guys, let's move on to staying in the Big Ten, and I'll start with you, Ralph. It's an interesting one because, for me, you got Iowa going to Penn State. If you handicap it strictly on paper, I would come up with one side. But whenever you start to put in the intangibles and you talk about at this time of the season, we have to consider stuff like this. Does the team have their team goals left? And that is clearly not the case with one of these teams. Penn State thought that they could play for a national championship this year. They actually could have played for a national championship the last 3 years, but this year they had those 2 back-to-back losses, and I think the second loss was a leftover from the first one.
They haven't played. There's other games they haven't played well in. I mean,
App State, the opener.
I think Appalachian State's a heck of a team, but they had to go to overtime, and they were lucky to win that game. They didn't play well against Pittsburgh.
No.
Pittsburgh's lousy.
The score is misleading. On score says they dominated that game.
They didn't.
Everything went wrong for Pitt in a 10-minute
This team's
stretch.
I don't know why, because on paper they are They look like they're loaded, but they just haven't played that way this season, guys.
Well, how much of it is the loss of the OC, now the Mississippi State head coach? They're a different offense. Losing, we see Barkley doing what he's doing in the NFL shows how important he was, and the OC gone. It gives you normally I'd be on Iowa in this side, and you have a defensive team that has only lost the turnover battle once this entire year. That was the Wisconsin game that they lost, and that was a misleading game because of those turnovers. But then I looked, and, rarely will an angle be substantial for me when it's this small of an angle. They're 0-4 as an away dog. Well, if you go to an opposing stadium and the team's better than you, and you have not beaten them in 3 years, that says something to me.
So that's the question. Is Penn State actually better than Iowa?
We don't know. We don't know. Beginning of the year, I probably had 7-10 points better.
100%. Yeah.
I don't know that. So to me, that's the question, and that's why this game isn't on my board, is for that reason. Because Penn State, yes, they should be better. Can they? You always talk about bubble burst. There was no bigger bubble burst play this year than losing to Ohio State at home, than losing to Michigan State, and then it had the effect last week against Indiana. Well, Indiana's an improving team too. So, it's a game that I'm going to watch, learn from, move on, perhaps use value against Penn State or on Penn State next week, but this game I'm passing on.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Next week is the other fly in the ointment. We're trying to figure out the psyche of Penn State this week. Are they going to get up to play? Well, I know there's one game that they're definitely going to get up to play, and that's going to be next week when they go to Michigan. They're going to want to spoil Michigan's season, and so it's just a horrible spot to back them. If it wasn't the bubble burst and if it wasn't Michigan on deck, honestly, I would be on Penn State, and I would probably be on them strong. But given the other circumstances, I lean to Iowa. I just have to.
Yeah. I'm the same way. And look, I'm not in love with this Iowa team. The quarterback's mediocre. They're not the most imaginative play-calling team, but it is kind of a vintage Ferentz team right now because, they're hanging in there, and they're doing what it takes to win football games for the most part. And Penn State they don't have anything to play for here. I mean, this team is not going to be where they wanted to be at the end of the season, and that's a team that you have to look at and just pick spots where this is a spot where they're going to be motivated, where you can feel going in it. They're going to give this their utmost concentration. Not effort, because the effort's always there, but concentrated effort's another thing. I don't know that it's there for Penn State. I can't bet them. I don't really like the other side, so guess what I'll be doing here? I'll be sidelining it, but if I had to play it, I'd take the points.
I'll tell you one thing, though. No matter what the head coach say or no matter what the players say, Penn State has pressure on them, losing back-to-back home games. If they lose a third straight home game in a season that they were supposed to be a potential championship case, all of a sudden you're going to get the Wolves coming out and really running on them. Well, again, let's move on, Marco. And it's not politically correct anymore to say the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Why isn't it politically correct?
I don't know. They said that they shouldn't call it that anymore. But
Why?
I'm going to call it the world's outdoor largest cocktail party.
Absolutely.
And this is another game.
Wait a minute. What is politically incorrect?
Drinking.
Florida and Georgia said that a few years ago that they don't want to call that because they don't want to be associated with
Red
drinking.
River Shootout. You can't call it a shootout anymore because
It's a rivalry.
I can.
I still call
And
them
guess
what they are.
I will. And
Dave has spoken. This is the
Well,
largest.
This is not. I'm not a politically correct person, and I am, quite frankly, quite proud of that.
Well, what we should have did is we should have had drinks when we were doing this game.
Not bad. Not bad. Should have J.R. Starkus come in and mix, do some mixology during the show.
In this summer, this line was 13.5. The
Not
Georgia
anymore.
Gators, and you know what? Dave and I have talked about Florida and Dan Mullen and the job he's done. And remember, Florida came into this season with 19 returning starters. They were loaded and get the upgrade in coach. I'm a believer in the Gators. Marco, tell us what you think.
Well, this is one of those ones, guys, where you've heard me use the ABC handicapping theory, and what that is where you've got three teams. They all played each other. One team lost to the common opponent. The other team beat the common opponent. So naturally, you got to do it. Well, that's what you have here. Florida beat LSU. Georgia lost LSU, and Florida's getting points. John Q. Public's going to look at this and want the dog, in my opinion. And for Georgia, We talk about the Dream Crusher game. Well, losing to LSU, normally I would say, okay, they had the Dream Crusher game. But, guys, losing that game to LSU changed nothing for Georgia because everything is still on the table. Their goal all along was to get to the SEC championship game, square off against Alabama, get their revenge, and then obviously if you're, you win the SEC championship game, beating Alabama, you're going to find your way into the top 4. It's still all there because all they have to do is take care of business the rest of the way, and that starts right here with this Florida team. Florida, they've done a marvelous job turning the program around. This is a team that always you can count on the defense. Florida's always there. They're like the, Michigan 2.0. Good defense, can't get any offense going. Well, they got a little bit of offense going. It's still not a lot, but I just don't think they've got enough to stay with this Georgia offense. Georgia had 4 turnovers in that LSU game. LSU took it to them. Make no mistake about it. They were going to win the game.
No, LSU is really good.
Yeah, even without the 4 turnovers, LSU wins the game. They just don't win the game as big as they won it. I think Georgia comes to play. They had 2 weeks to prepare. Both teams had 2 weeks to prepare, but I like Georgia here. I'm going with them on Saturday. I'll lay the points.
Yeah, I'm going to stay out of it, and I agree with most of what you just said. I think Georgia's still got plenty of reason to play. They're not out of this thing yet. And Florida's got a quarterback who can make mistakes. But I'm troubled by the Georgia offense right now because Fromm looks lousy. And I just wonder if if Kirby Smart's kind of stuck in jeopardy here because he's got to give Brom snaps, but everybody knows Fields the guy who should be out there really for the vast majority of the plays. Quarterback controversies are not good things. They really aren't. And I think you've got one at Georgia right now. And I think I want to wait and see what they do in this football game in terms of resolving that problem. If it's me, it's easy for me to say. I'm not the coach, and I don't have to face the music. If it's me, Fields is my starter. Sorry to the other guy who I know has NFL desires, and it's not going to do him any good to sit on the bench, but he's just not delivering the goods. He hasn't been for most of the season. They're a better team. They're a more dangerous team with Fields on the field.
Isn't it funny, though, Dave, that you look at Alabama and Clemson, and they made that tough decision, and look where they are now. They made the right decision.
Yeah.
And
Alabama benched the starting quarterback on a national championship team.
And Clemson did the same thing this year. So.
I think Kirby, and I really am curious as to what the game plan will be here. I think it's got to be Fields for most of this game because he's their guy.
Yeah, well, I have a slight lean. I'm not nearly as strong as Marco is on Georgia, but I do have a slight lean with Florida. I'm a huge Dan Mullen fan. I think they finally have the coaching to keep him close in this game. I think he has them prepped for this game. And you talk about the LSU game, and yes, one team lost and one team didn't. But I look at the LSU game, it was 361 to 202. Florida had a 159-yard edge. LSU was outgained by 153 yards. So I don't care about what the score was. On the field, they played better than that opponent. So I have a lean with the Gators, Marco.
All right, going out to the Pac-12. And, guys, this one here is the end of a 3-game trifecta as far as the Pac-12 goes. 3 weeks ago, you had Washington at Oregon. Huge game for Oregon. A lot of people were on Oregon in that game. Went right down to the wire, went into overtime. Oregon got the win. Now, off the Monmouth win that they had, then they went to play
Monmouth or Mammoth? Are you thinking horse racing here?
Yeah, let's go to Jersey. But after that huge win, Ralph, they go into Washington State. We talked about it last week. Biggest game for Washington State in forever.
The 80s Rose Bowl games, at least. Yeah,
to bring in ESPN Game Day there. What a scene it was, and they delivered. They put a whooping on Oregon.
First half, they were on fire. The first half, in fact, it was too easy because they came out flat in the second half and let Oregon get back in the game. And that was one of the most insane college football atmospheres I've seen in a long time.
So, do we complete the emotional trifecta here?
Oh boy,
and take Stanford?
Well. So here's why this is such a tough game, because it is a terrible scheduling spot for Washington State. It just is, but they're better than Stanford they are, and they're the underdog of the game. So, the odds makers have made it really difficult for you. If you're a situational player and Washington State the game is lined on the power rating, then Washington State comes in like 1 or 2, and you can make a better case for Stanford. Instead, now Stanford's laying the points, and that makes it a lot tougher. Because I'm going to tell you, Washington State is flat out better than Stanford. They power rate higher. Stanford has. You get a good quarterback against the Stanford secondary, he can do damage against them. The Stanford running game isn't that good because the guy can't stay on the field. Okay,
they keep putting him out there.
Well, they're leaving it up to him, and the guy's a gamer, and he wants to go out there and try, but he's clearly hurt.
He's hurting the team. At this point, he's hurting the team, and he's hurting.
I don't know
his
about
stock.
that. They have no one behind them. They've done
really.
nothing without him. So I don't know if he's hurting them or not.
I see, and this is the toughest kind of game for me because I am a matchup guy more than anything else. I know you're more situational than I am. Now, it's not that I ignore situations, because situations will take me off a game that I might have a side on, and that's the quandary for me here. I love Washington State as far as the numbers concerned, but I hate the situation for Washington State, so I'm probably going to end up passing the game. But there's a portion of me that still wants to play Wazoo because this will sound weird, but he's such a goofball coach.
Yeah, it's not what you would expect. When Mike Leach talks, you may expect the team to do the exact opposite.
That one guy who can defy any situation is Leach. His teams don't react like normal teams. And I'm not so sure they're going to have a flat spot here. So I haven't made a play on it, but I am still considering Wazoo in this game.
Ralph, with what he's saying, this smells like an in-game wager because you'll be able to tell in the first 5 minutes if this team's flat or not.
I like that.
Sit there, watch this game, and have that app ready. What do you think?
It's not very often I'm silent, but I completely agree with what both of you guys said. And for those that say, well, look, Stanford finally got it turned around after losing to Notre Dame and Utah. No, they didn't. They beat Arizona State 20-13. They got outgained by 79 yards, and they were plus 3 turnovers in that game. That's the reason they won last week.
And by the way, Arizona State completely mismanaged the clock on the last minute of the game. They should have had 2 more plays and 2 more chances to send the game into overtime, or maybe they got a touchdown and go for 2.
And Shaw did what Shaw does best in that game. When he had the 2-score lead, he shut it down.
I know.
He shut it down and let Arizona State back in the game.
Well, if he does that against Wazoo in their passing game, that's going to be trouble.
Yeah, I agree exactly with what both of you guys said in the game. And, Dave said he may be thinking about Wazoo. Maybe now you change his mind. He's going to do a live betting. And to be not politically correct, my balls aren't as big as Dave's to do that because I couldn't back Wazoo in the situation off that letdown roll. So I'll wait and see.
Well, I've heard that about you, but I didn't want to, bring it up on a national podcast. But okay, when you're right, you're right. All right, guys, since we're going to end this section on the size of Ralph's cojones, we're going to take a quick break here and come back. When we come back,
we're not measuring them during the break. Okay,
okay.
Just want to point that out.
Oh God, we'll be back in a moment, guys. To head to the NFL. Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. Let's head to the NFL. Guys, we got some interesting games in the NFL this week, and we're going to start off with one right now. I'll go to Dave. Anytime we're going to start to do a game and it involves the Rams, we're going to go to Dave so he can tell us about that 10-1 futures ticket
which
that he
isn't
got.
Even that good a price. No, it's better than some people got, but, if I had bet it earlier, I'd gotten like 16.
You going to, give it back because it wasn't enough? No. The fish is too small you caught?
No, I'm happy.
Okay.
I just wish Mahomes would slow down because
I'll buy it off you for face value.
He's completely crushing my golf MVP ticket.
I think Gorley's crushing your golf MVP ticket.
Mahomes is the MVP
but
right now.
Are you really going to vote a running back-to-back years?
I don't know.
That's a big part against him, though.
Mahomes is the MVP right now. Yeah. But listen, I'll take the Super Bowl win if I can get that out of the Rams, and I think I might win my over prop on their wins.
You think?
Yeah, you think?
Yeah. What was it?
I tell you.
10.
10.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to win three more games, man. I don't know about that.
That was a bad number. It really was. And I don't bet many NFL over and under win prospects. That was a bad number. It's like, what? They won 11 last year, and the division is worse.
I was on the radio show that day when you said all three of these things just popped in your head that you normally don't give them out, you normally don't play them. And you said the Rams, then you said Goff, and it was and the win total, all three.
Well, I'm going to cash one of them, that's for sure.
Oh.
So anyways, they play in Green Bay. And it's gotten to the point now where I am not betting against the Rams or Chiefs, period. I'll find something else, and that includes this game, because how are the Packers going to stop the Rams? Nobody can stop them. This is a fun game because Aaron Rodgers is going to be out there for Green Bay. It's going to be exciting. There's a high total on the game for rather obvious good reasons because you got two offenses that can do a lot here. But, I mean, you're not going to get any value on any Rams game the rest of the way. That doesn't mean you shouldn't play them because they are capable of going out and crushing teams, and they're going to be up for this game. Yeah, Green Bay's a name opponent. Rams are nothing for me.
I went with the Rams last week. I didn't have any problem laying that number on the road. Everybody, I was surprised at how many people, the Sharps,
I know,
that were on San Francisco last week. And to me, they were coming off a short week, Monday night.
They were coming off kind of a flat performance, too.
Yeah, they went in there and, almost beat Green Bay. They had to be, for me, that's a letdown after almost beating somebody on national TV like that as a huge dog going into, historic Lambeau Field and everything else.
Plus, the Rams didn't play particularly well the week before that.
No. So, I mean, everybody was jumping on it, but that's why I was on the Rams. I like taking a good team that has that lackluster performance because then that gives the coach the green light to drill them that week in practice and, ride them hard and wake them up. And that's what it was. The Rams came to play last week. They were aided by 4 turnovers, but that game was over 10 minutes into the game.
And by the way, if you're forcing turnovers, that play by Donald last week was absolutely insane.
That has to be one of the best defensive plays of the year. I mean, the tackle in the strip,
he tackled and did a strip in the same motion.
Yeah, it's incredible. Ralph, what do you think about this game?
I'm with you, Dave, that it's silly to play against the Rams and the Chiefs because when you're on streaks like that and you're just playing well, there's, those are like Patriot runs. Patriots were a bad defense, but their offense scored enough to cover.
It's like I got on a run this summer with the Cardinals in baseball.
Yeah, you did.
And I just played them every day. And I won like 13 out of 15. And then I was, okay, probably have had enough. They lost 2 in a row, and that was the end of it. You can make a lot of money playing, just riding a hot team blindly. I know some of the computer guys out there, the numbers guys, analytics guys, will look at that and say, oh, no, you can't handicap sports that way. Yes, you can.
Yeah, well, I agree with you in baseball more than in football.
Because there's no spread involved.
Right, and it's daily, and so you really can keep that momentum going. But just to make some points for Green Bay, I mean, the LA Rams are off 3 straight road games, at Seattle, at Denver, at San Fran. They are at New Orleans next week, another tough spot. You have Green Bay. This is only the second time in Rodgers' career he's been over an 8-point underdog. Rodgers is 4-0 ATS, getting 6 or points more in his lifetime. He's only been a dog of 6 or more 4 times. He's covered all those, and Green Bay is off a bye, 19-1 ATS
so
off a bye.
Let me ask you a question then, because this will tie into what I just said. So this looks like it might not be a great spot to play the Rams. But does that make it a good spot, despite those numbers, to play on Green Bay and against the Rams?
I like I said, I will not play against the Rams.
Okay.
I am just making a point here
that's
for
a
the
good
Packers,
point.
for those that want to, I wouldn't play the Rams in this spot because I think Green Bay has enough weight on its side that I would say, well, those are legitimate points, that they're going to be close enough. And by the way, yards per game diff on the season, the Rams are number 1 at 120. Green Bay is number 3 in the league at plus 98. So there's not that big of a difference. You wouldn't think that from the record, but what they've done on the field, and some people say, well, the Rams, the Packers were playing from behind. Those are garbage yards. Well, they're not garbage yards if your first team defense, opponent's defense, is still on the field, and you come back to tie those games or win those games. Those are just late yards, but they're not by any means garbage yards. So just some points for the Packers.
We saw this line open at 10. Wasn't there very long. Sharps come in, took the dog here, got it at 9.5. When we did videos yesterday, my thing was that I was going to look at this. I was waiting, hoping to see it come back to 10, and then I might get a little bit interested in taking Green Bay, but it's gone down even further. It's down to 9 now. They're continuing to bet Green Bay. It's for me in this one, it's Green Bay or not play the game because, again, what you guys are saying with the Rams, I agree this offense is potent, but the fact that I can just see the back door being left open.
Oh, yeah.
The Rams
like it was with Minnesota.
The Rams have given up points. We saw it in the Minnesota game, the 38-31 game. If they get up 14 points in the fourth quarter, does that mind start thinking just a little bit about that showdown with the Saints? Because that is going to be that'll be the biggest game of the season to date, in my opinion. I know we had all of the hype with
I'm
New
going to say
England
Chiefs Patriots, but
I think come by next week, if the Saints win again and they hold serve, that's going to draw more attention.
It'd be the only team that could catch the Rams in the standings.
Yep. So that's the one that that I'm going to look at. Slight lean to Green Bay, but moving on.
Marco, everyone talked about the game last year, one of the wildest playoff finishes. It was New Orleans at Minnesota. Well, they're returning to the scene of the crime. Minnesota, 1-point favorite, a total of 52. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, guys, we always talk about the revenge, and I say in the NFL, the only revenge that I look at is playoff revenge, or if it's one of the real heated rivalries like Pittsburgh-Baltimore and things like that. This is that, but I'm going to choose to ignore it in this one. And I know, say, Marco, you're going against everything you always say. If there's anybody that's got playoff revenge, my God, look at New Orleans with that play last year. They should want the revenge. They do, but you know what? The guy that threw that touchdown pass isn't here. Case Keenum's not here. This is Kirk Cousins' team. And this is a big game as far as positioning down the road for the playoffs. Minnesota, in my opinion, is getting disrespected on a weekly basis. I'm going to ask you, Dave, from what you saw of last week's games, you saw the Saints beat Baltimore, thrilling game, well-played game by both teams. It's a shame that a missed extra point cost us extra time because that should have went to overtime.
Yep.
In Minnesota, although it was a bad team, they throttled the Jets.
Oh, they were good.
Okay. The line on this game, the look-ahead line that Westgate brought out last week before these games were played was Minnesota -3. What has changed off of what you saw last week to warrant this line moving that much?
I guess the fact that New Orleans got a win at Baltimore, which is more impressive to anybody who's observing, that's going to be more impressive than a Minnesota win against the Jets. So
3 points more?
No, don't misunderstand. Not from us in terms of the real world, no. But in terms of bettor's perception, yes.
Okay, well, here's my point. 3 points more, maybe not. But you look at Minnesota, they barely got by Arizona, 27-17. Then they go to the Jets. Yes, it was 37-17. They had 316 yards against the Jets. They had 15 first downs last week. The only reason they won that game by 20 points is they were +4 turnovers. To me, you look at that performance, and it wasn't good. The scoreboard says good. The play on the field does not say good. You have an offense now that has to try to keep up with Breeze. I see adjustment, maybe not 3 in my book, but a point and a half or 2 points, I clearly understand.
I'm looking at this one, and I said all along the Saints' defense instantly was going to be better when Ingram came back because they had that more balanced attack. They could milk some clock. Their drives weren't, they weren't scoring in 2 minutes and putting the defense right back out there. They're moving down the field methodically. They still have the big play capability. Don't get me wrong there, but they're getting more closer on time of possession. That's always going to make the defense better. But, guys, this is the 4th road game in 5 games for them. They did have a bye week sandwiched in between it, but that's still tough. 4 out of 5 on the road. The 4 games that they played well defensively, was they held Cleveland to 18, they held the Giants to 18, Washington to 19.
Did you say wait a minute? They held the Giants to 18. that's actually not a good game.
Yeah, but this is a spot where my point is those are not offensive juggernauts.
No,
okay?
They're not.
And so let's not get too carried away on how good the defense is playing. Now they're going to play a good offense. Minnesota's got a ton of weapons, and you talk about, Diggs was the guy coming in. Kirk Cousins has found his receiver, and those two are connecting on a regular basis. Unbelievable the numbers that he's putting up this year. And what's going to happen, Dave, is as the season progresses, Diggs will start getting more stuff because now they're going to start shifting their attention to the other guy. And instead of Diggs getting the double coverages, you might see them both, getting double coverages off and on. And then, it's going to be Cousins' job to get the ball to the right guy. I like Minnesota in this spot. It's a Sunday night primetime game. This is a team, to me, that when they look at this number against New Orleans, I just got to say that this is a spot where it's a respect thing. This is their legitimizer. And, guys, we talked the early number was 3. Last year in the playoff game, number was 5.5. Now, granted, their defense has not played like it played last year. I will give you that. But this team, I just don't see being, 5 points different from the last year's playoff game. I think there's too much value on Minnesota.
The one thing I will say is I would have backed the Saints. But coming off a very physical Baltimore team, when you play a team in the NFL that is as physical as Baltimore, it takes you more than a week to recover. And now having to play another physical team on the road in a dome where you can't hear the cadences, that's keeping me off them. I'm not on the Vikings, but it's just keeping me off what the Saints are.
All right, good game here. Baltimore, gut-wrenching loss last week. I don't know who was shocked more. Whenever he misses the extra point, the look on Tucker's face. I mean, that was classic.
His eyes almost popped out of his head. What the hell just happened?
He hasn't seen that for his entire NFL career.
He missed one in college, I think.
No, he was good. His last missed extra point was his
Pop Warner.
Was in high school. He missed 7 extra points in high school.
What a stiff.
He sucked. Yeah, I know.
So,
How did he get that contract?
That's the best prediction for this game is that an incensed Tucker will kick an 84-yard field goal with room to spare.
Carolina, this is a team that when I look at them, I'm watching them, and I'm not seeing anything
How the
special.
hell are they 4-2?
Yeah.
I have an under ticket on the Panthers, so I was not happy with the result last week because I'm in trouble on that ticket. But they're not that good. They're just not. Baltimore's better than they are. So if you're
that's why they're the favorite on the road.
If you're just breaking it down to the most simple thing, who's better? It's the Ravens.
And we've seen the money come that way. Yeah. The money's come to the Ravens, and I got to agree with it. Ralph, I go to you. We've looked at this defense. The numbers, they're right there, number one in all the key numbers as far as the defensive team goes. Number one, yards per play at 4.8. Number one, yards per game, 280. Number one, points per game allowed, 14.4. And they just played an offensive juggernaut in the Saints, held them to 24. Carolina, if they don't get the running game going, they're going to be in trouble against this defense. Cam Newton needs the running game to work, and whether it's the running game with McCaffrey or him getting yardage on read option plays, they got to get something going on the ground early to open up the passing game. I don't know that they can do it.
Dave, the reason Carolina is 4-2 is because they have already played all 4 NFC East teams.
But they
you picked a bad year for that division to be down when they were facing Carolina.
I didn't think the division would be as bad as
who did? I mean, no one thought they were going to be that bad. So you would think normally you're playing the
That's
East.
Part of the
reason
some
competitiveness.
I thought, the best they're going to do here is 2-2, and well,
I completely agree with you. This is a situation where, again, there's a lot of games this week that we're talking about that I like a side, but there's reasons I'm staying off of them. And sometimes that's more important than picking a winner, leaving a potential loser off because of a situation. And that's Baltimore. Baltimore at Pittsburgh, at Cleveland, at Tennessee, home New Orleans, now at Carolina. 5 weeks, 4 road games, 2 of those division foes. To me, it's a very tough spot. I do lean with the under. I know this is a 44, I mean, who would put an NFL total that low? 44 used to be the normal total probably 5, 8, 10 years ago. Now it's like one of the lowest on the board. But with Baltimore in that situation, with Carolina, I think wanting to be conservative, and not forcing Cam Newton into interceptions 4 already this year, I do lean under in this game.
Yeah, and we talked about how good the Baltimore defense is. Throw in there Carolina's defense, which we always think about Carolina having a great defense. They're ranked 24th this year at 6.1 yards per play. I got Baltimore.
You know, Dave, looking through the notes when Marco sent the games we were going to talk about, I said, what the hell are we talking about Washington and the Giants for? So I'm going to have Marco start it off and tell us why this game made our board to discuss today.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I absolutely love this game, and I love a play. The problem is I can't exactly tell you who it is yet, and the reason for that is, and this is why, this has got a low total of 42, and it's bouncing around of who the favorite's going to be. I want the dog, and I am teasing the dog up because this game has 16-14 written all over it, 17-13. I'm teasing over the touchdown. Whichever dog I can get and get it over the touchdown, that's where I'm going to be. This game, guys, low total, history, they go under in these two matchup. The last 13 meetings between these two, these are old NFC East. You know, our buddy Scott used to say snobber knockers. Mm-hmm. 10 out of 13 have gone under the total. You get me over the 7, that's where I'm at. This will be one of my key legs in my teasers this week. I love the dog in here. Right now, that dog is the Giants. I wish it was the other way around. Yeah. Maybe feeling a little bit more confident. But Washington, Alex Smith, how's he ever going to get separation on any team? Dinking and dunking down the field.
Who did we just talk about? Oh, Carolina, they're 4-2. The Redskins are 4-2.
This is the worst first place.
Possible?
This is the worst first place team currently in the NFL right now of all of the divisions.
Yeah,
without question. Who are you going to make?
It's
Houston's the only other one.
Houston's got a good defense at least. Yeah, you might be right. I mean, and how bad are the Giants? There was almost 800 yards passing in the Monday night game.
Yeah,
and the game still stays way under.
They had to get the meaningless garbage touchdown at the end of the game to cover for them. Yeah,
and this game still finishes like 9 points under the total, with almost 800 yards passing.
How does it happen?
The Giants are just terrible, awful. I can't bet them, and the Redskins are a fraud. Okay, so I mean, you know, the rules say somebody has to win unless they play an extra 10 minutes and it ends up in a tie, and that could happen.
Well, you know, I don't know if this situation translates. You know, we know the Raiders gave up on the season with Gruden trading everyone.
The Raiders are tanking.
Right. But
there's a difference.
Does trading Eli Apple mean anything?
No.
Now the Saints like Eli.
Eli Apple's a stiff.
Now,
actually, by the way,
he's less of a stiff than Eli Manning because the joke in New York is they traded the wrong Eli.
Well, can you imagine when everybody's sitting in a bar watching the World Series game?
He'll cost them Apple will cost he'll cost New Orleans a critical touchdown at a game at some point.
You know how the scroll goes, you know, across the bottom. Could you imagine breaking news? Giants trade, and as it's coming across,
Eli.
And they're all clapping
and
in
they're
New
all
York.
getting excited. Apple, what the?
Well, the clubhouse for the Giants should be a happier place because the buzz has been for a couple of years that Apple is not the most popular teammate on the planet. But that doesn't mean anything.
You're not going to say sour apple, are you?
Ooh, that was good.
All right.
They call him Granny Smith.
The game's a pick 'em. I'm not a fan of Washington on the road, but backing the Giants is the worst of two evils for me. So I would have to have a lean with Washington.
I would go with what Marco talked about, not the teaser part. I think the under part. Who's going to get the ball in the end zone here? These teams find a way to screw up drives. You know, the Redskins, I was on Dallas last week, so I lost the game. I didn't like the ending, obviously. But both teams were terrible. It was a bad football. It was you look at it, ooh, that's exciting. It came down to the last play. That was a bad football game, okay?
Alex Smith, 14 of 25 last week for 175 yards. The week before that, he had even less yards. Yeah. It's dink and dunk all over, but at least when he was dinking and dunking in Kansas City, he had explosive play. He had explosive playmakers that could, take one of those little dinks and make it a slam dunk, catching it and breaking it for, 70 yards.
Well, he doesn't have speed here. He's got guys that could get down the field faster if they were in those little motorized scooters. These guys are slow, all right?
And the Giants, how are they the number one offensive team at 6.2 yards per play?
But they're all in the middle of the field, and it's all Barkley.
Yeah.
You get down to the red zone, their red zone offense is pathetic. They're just
because their plays are 4
team.
yards. They gain 50, and then they don't do anything. They're only averaging 19 first downs per game.
All right, so there you have the breakdown of that one. Mine officially tease the dog up through the 7. If the line is 1, obviously you're using a 6.
You know this game's ending on pick, right?
Oh, if it comes out on pick,
just
I'm
to screw Marco
I'm going to blow my mind. That comes out at
play
pick.
both sides of the teaser.
Plus 7. Well, see, I got to get over the touchdown though. Okay. The value here is you got to get that hook. You got to get it over the touchdown. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up this section. That means there's only one thing left, guys. When we return, best bets. Best bets went 2-1 last week.
Who lost? Was it me?
Wasn't you, sir.
Oh, okay. I don't remember what
Wasn't you, Ralph. I don't know who lost that third one.
It hasn't been Ralph in a couple of weeks now. Now that you keep saying that.
I don't remember what I played. But
he's easier to take when he's not winning everything.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that. We'll let him strut his stuff here in the best bet section.
I don't want to watch Ralph strut his stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what. We're in a small studio. And Ralph's blocking the door. You got no shot of getting around that.
I'm in trouble.
I'm sorry, Dave. Even in your best day, you weren't moving that offensive line.
This is a nightmare. Get me out of here.
All right, we'll be back here on the Wager Talk Podcast. Welcome back to the Wager Talk Podcast. This is the home stretch, best bet time. And guys, before we get to the best bets this week, I want to tell you about a special deal we've got going this week at Wager Talk. And you got to do it quick, guys. Got to act before midnight Saturday night. If you use, and this is for all of our listeners, coupon code TV225. TV225, you'll be able to pick up a 30-day all-access package from your favorite capper. That's 30 days of all of his plays. Guys, all the sports are going on right now. Next week, I shouldn't say all of them because we've got the next one starting next week with college basketball. You'll get college football, NFL, a few World Series games left, NBA, NHL, and, of course, as I said, college basketball tips off. What day is that, Ralph?
That would be November 6th. Yep. And by the way, 143 games go November the 6th. Yep. The college basketball used to be, about the 17th or 18th. Right. You get a couple games going and then a few more caught on.
I looked in my schedule, my Nevada sports schedule, and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
It was just unbelievable.
To celebrate the start of college basketball on November 6th, which just happens to be my birthday.
Sorry about
Ralph, Ralph,
word,
you should be buying me that crab leg dinner you owe me at Joe's, and then we'll invite Dave because I know Dave wants to bring me a Rolex from that jeweler store here in Vegas that we advertise through.
Marco, when there's 140 games on Tuesday and 140 games on Wednesday, when I finish Tuesday's card and post them at Wager Talk, I start on Wednesday's card. So if you want that crab leg dinner, you have to bring it to my house.
Order it to go.
Can I just swing by and pick up the money and I'll just go by myself?
Yeah,
I'll go with you.
I'll write you a check, absolutely.
I'll go with you. I want to get some Dover sole. By the way, it's fresh king crab season.
Oh,
it just is. So,
well, crab legs probably taste better if they're fresh like that.
King crab. But this is the time of year where they really run good.
Yeah.
So if you like king crab, now's the time.
Now's the time to do it. All right. Well, I'll tell you what.
And let's just mention real quick, Joe's angle of the day on the Las Vegas Sports Line.
We do just what that is. It's not Joe. Okay. There's nobody named Joe providing the angle. The segment is sponsored by Joe's Seafood Prime Steak and Stone Crab, one of the great restaurants in Las Vegas. There's about 6 or 7 nationwide. We're fortunate to have one here. And they've been a longtime sponsor of the show, so it's called Joe's Angle of the Day. But in actuality, it's Ralph Michaels' Angle of the Day, and it's won 10 in a row.
Yep, so tune in, or you can listen archived
yep.
and just listen to that play. So just want to give the shout-out. Marco, you're on the radio 2 times a week. Teddy
Monday,
covers a couple times. I'm on one time, and Dave does
every day.
Great job hosting. It's a fantastic bit of knowledge for our listeners.
All right, guys. And that 30-day offer, like I said, we've got some hot guys sitting here. Dave, you're having a great college football.
You're referring, of course, to selections.
Selections.
Because I am not nobody's called me a hot guy in a long time. I can guarantee
when we're in those pictures with Kelly in Vegas, they always say one of those people are hot. I never know which one they're talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Ralph. Wake up, buddy. Time to go to school, little Ralphie. Wake up. Dave, what do you got for a best bet for us?
By the way, it has been good lately. NFL has been a little bit not so good. But college football, I'm very pleased. And I'll just mention back-to-back years with the exact same win percentage right now in college football on all plays, 63%.
You're a creature
good.
of habit.
That's a good habit.
That's a good habit.
NHL, I'm feeling pretty comfortable, and college basketball, looking forward to the start of that. So I think it's a good package. I will do the complete analysis of this game on my on a free play that I'm going to post at WagerTalk sometime between now and Saturday. It'll be on the A&M Mississippi State game. I'll tell you that I'm taking Texas A&M in the game, and I'll explain why for those of you who visit WagerTalk.com. All you have to do is click on free plays, and it will show up. But we want you to visit the site, so if you want the actual analysis on that game, visit the site.
Yes, and
ooh, teaser.
Was that good or what?
Yeah, wow.
Nice. Good stuff there, Dave.
You get a check mark from Johnny
That
Detroit.
was this is an inside joke. Sorry, guys. That was awesome.
If you listen to the archive show today, you can get it. So.
Well, speaking of awesome, Mr. Awesome's ready to give you his best bet. And, guys, we bust balls all the time on this podcast. This is probably one of the funnest shows that I've been associated with, getting to hang out with these two guys each week. And we generally have fun doing what we're doing. And it's this guy, I am rooting for him. He's having a tremendous college football season. What a run he's on right now. Is it 15-1 or
15-1? Yeah.
15-1 on the current run. You would absolutely be insane not to pick him up for a 30-day package, because as good as he's doing in college football, this guy's bread and butter, before I ever met him personally, I knew of the legend, was college basketball with Ralph, and that's about to start next week. Action every day, a 30-day package, $225. It's normally $325. You're saving $100 getting all of his plays. In this next part that I'm going to give him as props, I really don't want to jinx him, but Johnny Detroit already took care of that earlier this week. Where are you at in the Golden Nugget football challenge?
Well, there's 318 people in the Nugget. I mean, not nearly the Hilton numbers, but number 3, I'm a 1.5 out of first place. So, Nugget contest is, I think, $170,000 to the winner. So I can buy both
buddy.
of you guys crab legs.
Here's a lock. That's what it's going to take for me to get my crab leg dinner at Joe's. What do you think, Dave?
I'm still not convinced.
You're still not convinced.
It's like, I'll get back to you guys.
Well, I'll tell you what. If he wins the Nugget contest and I don't get my crab leg dinner, the podcast moving forward will be Dave, me, and a guest to be named later.
Hey, saves me a drive all across town. All right, Marco talked about the 225 special. I do have a 5-star SEC game of the month, only my third 5-star in college football this year. That play is $30. You get the 225 package, that play is included. Again, you have to make sure you get that Friday before Saturday's kickoff, but just another enticement. And like I said, college basketball kicks off 140-plus games that first day. Never had an opening day like it. I'm going to the Big 12, and I like Iowa State. Dave and I have talked on the radio about the job Matt Campbell has done and how he's turned that program around. They are a legitimate B contender. They're not quite that A-level team yet, but that's because the recruiting hasn't been able to match Oklahoma and Texas. If he starts getting a few 5-star recruits, that'll take that team to an entire next level. You look at what they did against West Virginia, holding them to, I think, 7 points last week. Well, I'll tell you what. Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach of Texas Tech, learned his offense from Dana Holgorsen at West Virginia. It is the exact same offense. They're playing the exact same team, basically, back-to-back weeks. They already shut down this West Virginia team. They're going to shut down Texas Tech. In the last 2 years against that Texas Tech offense, 10 points and 306 yards in 2016, 13 points, 336 yards last year. Iowa State, best bet.
All right, guys, I'll get to my best bet. And I've got a streak going, too. And normally any other time, Dave, 13-5 record, you would be happy with a streak like that, picking up almost 24% bankroll increase for my clients. But next to this guy, it's like I feel like I'm not even winning compared to a history.
I'm not doing too bad either. So
So you're third in the room, Marco. Let's call it what it is. Okay.
I think 9-2 with my WagerTalk college plays last week. And it's still not even close. I mean, this guy's just ridiculous.
Dave, Marco needs to just suck it up. He's third in the room, period.
Well, I'll tell you what.
In current form.
We'll just put it this way. If you're taking one of these specials that get offered every once in a while, you can pick 3 cappers of your choice.
Yeah. Not a bad threesome.
Oh, boy.
Now, we're talking sports betting. We're talking sports betting.
Yeah,
you don't want this threesome.
And the interesting thing is, I don't know if there's been many common plays among them.
No, you and I, we all share each other's plays, and it's
but I'm saying we haven't even come up with the same sides,
and not many against. You and I had one against. I mean, so we were talking the entire season, 60 plays, and we went against each other one time. So.
And that's the beauty of handicapping. This is a phrase that everybody uses, but it doesn't make any sense. There's so many different ways to skin a cat. Well, first of all, who's skinning cats?
That's politically incorrect.
Yeah,
okay?
but it's a saying.
I have a cat.
I have a cat
not skinning him.
And I have a black cat. I'm not superstitious.
I wouldn't do that to him.
But it's
where I live in those Chinese restaurants, you just never know.
Well, that was very politically incorrect.
Yeah. But quick story. Whenever I come from a small town outside of Pittsburgh, they opened up a Chinese restaurant, nice Chinese restaurant in town. And the one guy I used to have lunch with every day goes, son of a bitch, I haven't seen a cat in weeks.
All right, let's get to the best bet, Mark.
All right, guys. I'm going to go to the NFL, and I'm going to go to a total. And I know I gave a total last week, and I had the gut-wrenching loss with Minnesota Jets under. That was a stone-cold under for 3 quarters in 5 minutes until all hell broke loose in the last one. 4th and 8, they didn't punt the ball. Why didn't Minnesota punt the ball? Zimmer goes for it and gets a touchdown, and that just opened up the floodgates for that game to go over. And I had a side bet with Teddy covers on that one. That's what made it even more of a kick in the nuts for me losing that one.
He went over the total.
Yeah. All right, this week I'm going over the total in the Cincinnati-Tampa Bay game. Cincinnati.
Oh, good. There's a cat involved. The Bengals.
Yeah, okay. This is when last week, pure and simple, looking at that Cincinnati team, Dave, this is something you talk about all the time, a team losing a game twice. Cincinnati lost the Steeler game not once but twice. They lost it last week. They look like a team that was hungover. They came out flat, and you don't come out flat against this Kansas City offense because if you blink your eyes, you're down 14-0, and when you're down 14-0 to an offensive juggernaut, your whole game plan goes out the window. You cannot have any semblance of trying to have a balanced offense. You're going to have to throw on every down, and then a defense that's bad can actually, change their game plan a little bit, pin their ears back, and come after you. And Andy Dalton's not a good guy under pressure. But the Cincinnati defense and his Tampa Bay defense, last week Tampa Bay was going up and down the field on Cleveland. Cleveland's defense is not the worst in the league. They're not bad. They're not the greatest.
They were a top 10 defense last year.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is a team. They went
average.
Up and down the field. They kept shooting themselves in the foot with turnovers. They're going to get points in this game. I think both teams are going to get it. I see both teams getting into 30. I see a shootout in Cincinnati. I'm taking this over the 54. And how many people are going to look at it and say,
that's too high?
It's too high based on, if they couldn't get to the over in the Cincinnati KC game, they got no shot here. Over 54 is my best bet. Guys, I want to thank our guest tonight, William Bernanke from CG Analytics, stopping by and taking us behind the counter. I want to thank my guys here in studio, Ralph Michaels, Dave Cokin. Want to give a big shout-out to Johnny Detroit, who makes sure this podcast is up everywhere. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. You can listen on Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio. And, of course, Mark Seidel. He makes sure we sound good each and every week. And last but not least, you guys, the listeners. Guys, we have no podcast if it's not for you. We have a lot of fun doing the podcast every week, and I hope you pick up some good information from us and are entertained at the same time. Until next week, I'm Marco D'Angelo. Let's cash some tickets.